Supports this bill. Kia ora. Two selectmen.
Julianne Gender.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker. Kia ora e te whare. Mr. Speaker, as the Green Party spokesperson on justice, I'm very pleased to rise to follow my distinguished colleague, David Clendon, to speak on the first reading of the Administration of Community Sentences and Orders Bill. I'm very pleased to say, as Mr. Clendon noted in his first speech, that the Green Party will be supporting this bill to Select Committee. The amendments in this bill are largely minor policy changes that will ensure community sentences are adequately implemented. The Green Party places a high emphasis on the role of community sentences in achieving a fair and sustainable Aotearoa. And prisons really are a sign of failure in society. I believe even the Minister of Finance has said a moral and fiscal failure, and they are self-perpetuating. Prisons as they currently exist in this country are academies of hard crime. Non-violent offenders, whenever possible, should not be sent to prison where they will be further alienated from society, exposed to violence, and network with other more hardened criminals. I would taitoko what my colleague Charles Chevelle and the Honourable Phil Goff said earlier tonight, who very rightly pointed out that the Ministry of Justice review of home detention has conclusively shown that community sentences are significantly more effective at reducing recidivism than prison sentences and at a fraction of the cost. Justice is more than just locking up criminals and doing away with their rights. It's about making our communities safer and rehabilitating offenders. And I noticed that Mr. McKelvey and Mr. Ross noted that it's very rare that the Green Party can be enthusiastic about a National Party justice bill. Already this year I've spoken on a number of bills, not the least the Corrections Amendment Act, from this government that seek to undermine the basic human rights of prisoners. And I think that must be because the National and ACT parties have a very narrow view of human consciousness, willpower, choice, and in fact, Mr. Speaker, their view is not backed up by the latest in human psychology. What I hear from the government side of the House is usually a desire to exercise vengeance on those who have been convicted of transgressing the law. And that is punishment for the sake of punishment, and it is incredibly costly. It costs significantly more. It is a very narrow view and incorrect to hold an individual as always entirely and solely responsible for the crime they have committed. There are complex factors at play. We need to recognize that all of us make mistakes, and many of us, if not all, are capable of learning from our mistakes and changing our behavior. So our approach to justice is more pragmatic and more fiscally responsible than the government's. It asks, how can we best minimize the harm to society that comes from transgression of the law? And how can we prevent it from happening again? It's not usually by locking non-violent offenders in a traumatic, violent, and alienating prison and taking away their rights, but through factors like restorative justice, which puts victims at the center of the process. I'm hopeful that this bill could result in a more effective use of community sentences and help us see true reduction in crime rates at a much lower cost and a more just and fair Aotearoa New Zealand. Kia ora, Mr. Speaker.
Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr.